Hello world, this is Jeffrey, JGB146 Blake, coming to you with episode 1 of Quagnag Trick Bag. So today we're going to look at 3 different lists, and I'm going to talk about them and why I think mine is the best, and the issues that I've encountered with the other ones. So without any further ado, here is Decklist 1. So my history with Quagnag is I was solidly on Pikarom coming out of St. Louis. I liked it. I knew I should have, in my heart, I felt I should have made day 2, even though that wasn't in the cards, and I definitely also feel like my opponent for round 9 deserved day 2 as well. He's a great player, and he's continued to do really well throughout the rest of the quarter. So not too hurt that I didn't, but I felt like I should have had it. Well, so then I came and I played in a cup right away, and I was playing a different build of Pikarom. It was sort of a lightning box build, similar to what's become popular now, but at that point in time it was fairly unique, I think. It was a version of the list that one of my fellow teammates on level 5 had won the Collinsville Cup with. So I liked it. It played well, but it was a complicated deck with lots of decisions, and if you made any errors in those decisions, you were in for trouble. And I was actually working with Finnegan Lynch on how to perfect some of that stuff, and we didn't feel like I was quite getting there in time to have a perfect game for Collinsville. So I started looking at other options. I also sort of hated, I kept running into lots and lots of fighting locally, and I hated how horrible that matchup was. So I looked for something to make matchup against fighting decks and Zoroark better. And at the cup that I was talking about, I lost one game during Swiss. I was actually the top seed going into Top Cut, but I had one loss, and that was to the deck you see in front of you, Quagnag, with a few different things. So let's go through real quick, and this will cover, after we go through this list, we're just going to cover briefly the differences that we'll see in other lists as opposed to going through them completely. So Ditto's Ditto, you can evolve it into either a Quagsire or a Naganadel. Yay. Okay, Naganadel. Well, Poipole. We're using Spit Poison, add a little bit of damage. This has been relevant because a lot of the attackers in the deck hit for round numbers. And when I say round, I mean like it's a lot easier sometimes to hit for 180 than 190 or 200 than 210. So that extra 10 damage, even 260 versus 270, 240 versus 250, wherever that's relevant. That extra 10 damage that you get from one hit of poison, and especially the extra 3 that you can get if they can't get out of the active, can be really relevant. So we want the Spit Poison. We don't care about seeing our prizes, even though there are times that would be great. The extra damage here is more important. Main reason we're playing Poipole, though, is of course Naganadel. Using the Charge Up ability, we can get an energy out of our discard every turn for continuing to get more and more energy on the board, which powers up all of our attackers. A lot of our attackers require a lot of energy to do anything meaningful, and Naganadel helps make that happen. That's also why we have Aqua Patch, obviously, and B-String is another aspect of energy acceleration there, specifically for Naganadel. Obviously, Naganadel is the only Ultra Beast that we play, so you want to make sure that you get and keep Naganadels out. And yeah, 2 Lele for consistency, so we can use Wonder Tag and get supporters when we need them. We have 3 Articuno, and this Articuno is so much fun to play. So first of all, you're developing your board to get energy out, right? One of the things that we'll see, actually I'll just pull it up so we can talk about it briefly and then we'll circle back. One of the driving forces of the deck, once you have Naganadel getting energies on board, is using Quagsire to move the energies around so that you can sort of have whoever you want as an attacker. He lets you decide who you're going to attack with, regardless of where your energies have been. So that's cool. Articuno pairs well with Quagsire because Articuno needs 2 energy and his attack gets rid of the energy and moves it to somewhere else on your board. So the kind of thing that you can have going is you put a couple energy on Articuno and then he moves the energy off of him, so he's going to make a hit, and if your opponent takes a knockout on him, then it doesn't matter because there was no energy on him. You don't lose any of that energy. So that's half of the fun, right? They can take knockouts. Yeah, they'll get a prize, but they don't hamper your energy ramp up, which is sort of the important thing for the deck. The other half of what's cool about Articuno is his ability. As long as this Pokemon is your active, any supporter card that an opponent plays from their hand doesn't affect any of your benched water Pokemon. So they can't Guzma your any of your water Pokemon, basically, if Articuno is in the active. They can't use a Plumeria to discard energy. They can't, I don't know what else is really relevant, but those are the 2 things that I've seen. That it doesn't keep them from trying, though. So they can play Guzma, and then when they say, oh, I want to target your Wooper, you say, I'm sorry, that Guzma just fizzled. You have used your supporter for turn, but to no effect. Rough. They can also say, alright, I'm a control deck, I'm going to play Plumeria, I'm going to get rid of that water energy you have down there that you just moved off the Articuno, because I don't care, because I don't take KOs. And then you again say, sorry, but the water energy stays, my man. So yeah, it's kind of nice. And this deck actually will make a small appearance in controlling control, but we'll get there. So yeah, the downside of Articuno is that he's weak to lightning or electric, whatever you want to call it, and that's obviously relevant in the meta right now. He only has 110 HP, so he gets knocked out by just standard Zoroark, although Lycanroc cannot knock him out without either Diancie or Kukui, other than using Dangerous Rogue, which happens. I've had Articuno like absorbing a Dangerous Rogue so many times, and that is so nice because then they cannot knock out your bigger attackers later in the game. Okay, so that's Articuno. We play 3 of them to help our setup, to help us maintain that energy, and it's good. It's helpful. Alright, so let's move into big boy attacker number 1. Magikarp and Wailord Tag Team GX. 300 HP means he's not going down the first time you stick him up to swing. Unless you're against a grass deck, he's gonna sit there for a little bit. That's good. That's helpful. That's nice. He hits pretty hard. 5 energy for 180. Seems like a lot, but then when you realize that you're getting a couple energy extra every turn, as long as you can get into the discard, it's not that bad. You can achievably hit this on like turn 2 or 3 sometimes. Like ideal setup, you can hit it on turn 2. Average setup, you can hit it on turn 3 or 4. Things going a little wrong, turn 5. But that's not even the best thing about him. So he hits 180, Choice Band makes that 210. This is where the poison can come in and help things. So you can KO a Zoroark with a Choice Band, you're good. You can KO Lycanroc with the Choice Band, you're good. you need a little bit more than that to KO some of the bigger things that can be in play. We'll talk about that. But the other half of the equation is there's lots of decks that have lots of like 90, 100, even some 70 HP Pokemon. And that makes Wailord happy. Because if you get 8 energy on him, he can do 100 damage to every single Pokemon on your opponent's bench. So, one, that means sometimes it's okay to 2-hit KO. Like, you put 180 damage on a Pikarom, then you just Guzma something else and you use Towering Splash to the next turn. And that Picarom's going down because he's down within 100 now. And, you know, some of his other supporting Pokemon. If they played an Absol, Absol's gone. If they play, you know, if it's a list that played Jirachi, Jirachi's gone. If it's a list that played some baby Pokemon, they might be gone too, depending on how you got to this point. We'll talk about that in a minute. So, Towering Splash is awesome. Really, it almost makes Zapdos Jirachi matchups an auto win. It almost makes Ultra Necrozma an auto win. It's really good, really nice. Makes us happy. Okay. We've got a Palkia in here. So, Palkia has Spatial Control, which we'll never use. We have this as an ability. We don't want to use it as an attack. We have the Hydro Pressure attack. So this is essentially the same attack as Lele has, which is also the same attack as Quagsire has. It's stated differently, but same attack. As far as we're concerned, it with 3 energy starts at 60 damage, plus 20 more for each additional water attached. I guess Lele is a little bit lower because Lele 3 energy is just a base of 60 without the 20 extra. So it's sort of a base of 120 and it grows from there. Lele builds based on your opponent's energy too, so oftentimes it starts at with 3 energy would be 100 to 120 anyway. So this is a decent attack. Nothing wrong with it. 5 energy GX attack that shovels all energy from your opponent's Pokemon back into their deck. That can be pretty helpful too. Although there are a lot of decks that just need a single attachment or have ways to recover energy. So this isn't the be-all end-all of GX attacks, and we usually prefer to use Quagsire or Wailord's GX attack. I feel like I have one more thing to say about Palkia, and that's just that I've gotten rid of him for a few reasons. If you like what we've talked about here, he's a good inclusion. He just didn't feel optimal to me for reasons we'll talk about in a minute. I also want to point out that this list, as it was played against me in that cup, played the water type. That helps you for being able to use an opponent's Brooklet Hill. That helps you for being able to Aqua Patch onto Palkia. However, I kind of, Celosaur is a thing. And if you're going to have Palkia in a deck, it might be worth it to play the Dragon type one so that you are not weak to Grass and they can only one-hit KO you if they have either... so if they have Choice Band or are using their GX attack. That could be worth considering, because then you could avoid having him just go down in one shot, which might be able to give you the win against the Celosaur deck. Otherwise you're basically attacking with Lele, and that can work, but it's tough. So if you're playing Palkia, I personally recommend the Dragon type, but there's arguments to be made for sticking with the Water type, as Jonathan Soto, shout out, did in the deck that he first showed me with this list. Okay, next attacker, Volcanian. So we have Jet Geyser. That can mean if our opponent puts up a Pokemon that they just want us to have to take a single prize on instead of doing something meaningful, we can say no. We want something else. Unless they have 2 Pokemon that they don't care about us hitting into, that can be good for us. Jet Geyser's fun. also helps, you know, if we have energy in hand and we need to have an extra way to get some energy into the discard for Naganadel or Aqua Patch or whatever, that ability helps us do that. Volcanion is GX attack. It's not a GX attack, it's a normal attack you can use every turn. Is Sonic Blast. Hits for 100. That's a decent attack. Again, for a single prize Pokemon, it's decent. But it also does 20 damage to each of your opponent's benched Pokemon. So here again, we're spreading some damage around, cleaning up some of the math. Play I like to do as often as I can against Zapdos Jirachi decks. Hit into one Zapdos, that puts 20 everywhere else, and then you hit into another Zapdos and you KO both of them. Plus, you know, spreading more around so that you can then KO everything else they start bringing out. Works pretty well, especially since Zapdos doesn't hit for weakness. They rarely want to use all of their Electro powers to take out a Volcanian single prize Pokemon. Sometimes they do, but I guess they don't need all, they just need 3, but still. If you cause them to waste 3 Electro power, that's good. Okay, so moving on. Wooper, we're playing the 70 HP version that came out in Dragon's Majesty. Are there any others available currently? So that's the same thing. That's expanded. Yeah. 2 coins, 20 times the number of heads. Yeah, if we were playing expanded, we might do this one instead. That seems slightly more relevant than, I mean, I don't know, we'd probably stick with this one even in expanded. But that doesn't matter because we're playing standard with this guy. So 2/2 line here. Obviously we don't really care too much about the Wooper. The 70 HP is nice because it prevents you from having, you know, random things like a Lele KO and that sort of thing. If you start him and put an energy on, like it lets you accelerate things a little bit more with a little bit less worry. And Quagsire. So Quagsire, it's a slightly different name, Hydro Pump versus I think it was Hydro Pressure on Palkia. It's the same exact attack. So you're doing a base if you put 3 water energies on here, which as we've already covered isn't that hard to do, of 120 on a single prize Pokemon. That's decent. But it scales up from there. So, you know, we play 11 energy. 11 times 2 is 220. If you put all 11 energies on your single prize Quagsire, you got somebody that's hitting 280. Choice Band 310. You can KO everything. Now, can you do that reliably every game? No. But this is an option. He is an option as an attacker. And you know, a lot of times you don't need to put that much energy on to get a KO, which means you can stagger things. You can have a follow-up after you've taken a KO with a Quagsire. Can be pretty good. Okay. Now let's go through items. So Aqua Patch, get back energy from the discard straight out onto a water Pokemon on your bench. We're always going to have water Pokemon on our bench. B-String. Once your opponent has taken a couple prizes, then you can say, okay, Naganadel, here's a bunch of energy for you. You probably want to get it off of the Naganadel pretty quickly though, because you don't want it to stand there, since he's an easier target in some cases. He does have 130 HP, so he's a little bit harder for Zoroark to like KO, but still, you want, as much as possible, you want to spread your energy out while playing this deck. The one exception being, it's often best to leave no energy on Articunos so that you can just flip-flop them back and forth against opponents' attempts at using an escape rope to then be able to Guzma a juicier target. Mysterious Treasure, useful for getting out Lele's and Naganadel line. Nest Ball, useful for getting out everything that's a basic. Can't get out of Quag with it. We have one Rescue Stretcher, so that we use to get back discarded, knocked out Poipole Naganadels or Wooper Quagsire lines, that sort of thing. Yes, it's just one in this build. Yes, I think more are better. Ultra Ball, we play 4. Let's just get out Pokemon. Yay. Viridian Forest, we play 3 in this list. This helps you accelerate energy into your discard. If you have energy in your hand, you often Viridian Forest it away to get another energy in your hand that you're going to use, so that you can then get the first energy back with one of the other options we've talked about. Supporter lineup, we got 3 Cynthia, 2 Erikas, 3 Guzma, 4 Lillie. So that's 9 draw supporters. It works out pretty good most of the time. And then we have the 3 Guzma for selecting targets, that sort of thing. We have 2 choice bands, so we do have ways to hit those bigger numbers, but there's only 2 of them because a lot of times you don't need to hit those bigger numbers, or you can use energy on some of your attackers instead of a choice band. And then 11 energy feels like a good number. There are lists that have played less, there are lists that go down to 10. I prefer 11. Helps you with dealing with situations where you've got some energy prized. I like 11. Okay, so this is the first list I encountered. We've talked about everything in it. Now we're going to look at the list I actually eventually got to after doing a bunch of testing. We're going to go ahead and save this version because I updated a few things while I was making this video. So now we're looking at the list that I played in Collinsville. There might be a few things that stand out. First of all, no Palkia. Why? Because Palkia is a 2-price Pokemon. Yes, the GX attack helps you in some matchups like Pikarom. You can drop them suddenly down to 0 energy. But you know what? Every time I used that GX attack against Pikarom, you know what happened? They used Cocoa Prism Star and got enough energy out to then use Thunder Mountain to then attack the very next turn. Still, we hadn't KO'd anything, the energy didn't disappear, and it worked, but not well enough. What did I do instead? I brought in Onix. Onix or Onix, however you want to pronounce it. I think both are probably correct, and I don't remember. It's probably Onix, like the stone. Anyway, 120 damage, 4 energy, 4 retreat cost. Everything about that sounds awful. Until you're like, well, lots of things are weak to fighting, so that's really 4 energy for 240. That's still a lot of energy, but the hit sounds good. And it's only got 120 HP. That means a lot of times it gets KO'd as soon as you've attacked with it. But that's okay, because usually Onix is taking you 2 to 3 prizes with his attacks. Losing 1 after that, and even dropping the 4 energy is kind of an okay price to pay for that benefit. Alright, so Palkia turned into Onix. I think it's a good trade. We have Oranguru in here instead of our second Lele. So here's reasons why. Oh, side note. Other thing about Palkia, Palkia sucks as a starter. If Palkia is your first Pokemon out, you're not in for a good time. You're probably going to give up 2 prizes if you don't get out of it, and that's ouchy. Not fun. Well, the same thing is true of Lele. Not quite as much. You can use Lele, get energy, but you can't execute your game plan as well with Lele in the active. you end up having to retreat and discard off energy and blah 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 blah. It's not great. So we don't want to give up those 2 prizes, and we don't want to have to deal with those complications. So I found with 1 Lele, I started so much less. That was great. And I never really, I mean, every once in a while you want Lele and Lele's prized, but for the most part, I've never had issues with trying to find Lele and Lele not being there, one not feeling sufficient. We have a Oranguru here with an ability we can use every turn to improve our consistency further. I think the draw ability here, is more important to keeping the deck rolling than the Lele. That was the number one thing that when I was working with Finnegan Lynch that he wanted to fix, because we would have games, we did tests, and the games that I set up were awesome. I pretty much won if I got set up, but there are games where you dead drew, and yeah, that can happen with any list. Happens less when you've got a Oranguru. Let loose is kind of a thing you don't care about when you have a Oranguru. So yeah, we did that. We increased the Poipole count to 3, taking out some items to do that. Why did we do that? Well, because Poipole's a target, and Poipole's not protected by Articuno. So you want to try to keep them around, you want to try to have multiple out, and that's hard to do when you're only playing a 2/2. We fixed that. We dropped a Mysterious Treasure, partially to increase that count, partially because we dropped a Lele. Our finding was that you don't need treasures as badly. We also wanted to increase consistency by adding in Acro Bikes. Finn wanted more Acro Bikes. I agree that I want more Acro Bikes in here to increase consistency. I couldn't find where I could take something out that I was happy about. I didn't feel like you could drop a draw supporter for additional Acro Bikes. That seems like it hurts consistency. And then other things that we tried just didn't feel right either. Like we tried dropping an Aqua Patch going down to 2. Yes, we're down to 3 now already. That feels lower than I'd want it to be, but again, it helps our consistency enough that I'm solid that turning this into 4 Aqua Patches and 1 Acro Bike isn't the right move. 2 Nest Ball, still the same, good. We added another Rescue Stretcher, so that makes it easier to get back Onix, to get back a Poipole or a Naganadel. It makes it so that early on, if you draw into Wailord and it's not time to put him out yet, you just don't. You can discard him with an Ultra Ball and get him back when you need him with Rescue Stretcher. So Ultra Ball is still the same, everything else is the same. Those are the differences. I feel like this list doesn't have the same ability that we used to have to just kind of pop off when our opponent got to 3 or 4 prizes, but things still had to be set up right, and a lot of times with Articunos out there, they could get there and then you couldn't get into your B strings to get that pop off effect. So now we're focused on consistency, being able to set up, not getting stuck by some of our opponents' more annoying plays like Judge or Let Loose. And I think that's an improvement. It definitely has flowed a lot more, a lot better. And if you go back and listen to Seagrove's video with Tord, he talks a lot about improving your overall every game execution instead of sticking with a list that has those extra power cards. You have to have a good mix, and I feel like we still have enough power cards in here, so the extra consistency cards pay dividends to make those power cards more able to fire off when we need them. So this is my list. Credit to Finnegan Lynch for helping me out with it. And then we'll look at the other Quagnag list. So this one is not mine. This one we'll see a few differences. And the biggest thing that I want to talk about here is, even though it looks very similar in a few ways, it plays very differently. There are good changes, and I think there's some bad changes. And it's not really changes, because this list was reached completely independently from my process with Finn. This is a list that actually made a pretty high placement in Denver. And so we're back down to 2 Poipole. I don't like that, but this was Alex Kreckler's list, and you know, Alex knows better than me, so maybe that's good. I'm not gonna say one way or the other. I have my reasons for liking 3. We're up to a 4-3 Quagsire line, so this helps us to be able to get out multiple Quagsires. My opinion has sort of been that if you have one Quagsire out and a way to get into another one, if that one goes, you're probably okay. But part of that was a reliance on Articuno, and then combining the reliance on Articuno with the thought of, well, they have to knock out my big hitter to be safe, and they can't take out Quagsire and leave themselves vulnerable. Here, we're just like, no, we're gonna have Quagsire. What? We've got that third Acro Bike in here, so in some ways we have better consistency. We have that 4th Aqua Patch in here, so in some ways we have, you know, better consistency there too. But that comes at a price. If you look over the list, you'll see a few things from our list missing. There's no choice bands. Half of those became wishful batons, which increases consistency, helps you maintain that extra damage on Quagsire. And is a change that, you know, I could even play around with in my list. But other changes hurt me a little bit. There's no Articuno. The argument has been that Articuno actually makes your matchups worse in many ways. I like Articuno. I like how he lets you take a little bit of time to set up. You do fall behind on prizes. I think you're going to fall behind on prizes here too, because we've got this counter catcher in here. I'm not sure how I feel about the counter catcher. It's a great item when you're behind on prizes, so there's one argument in favor of it there. But to get it in, what did we do? We took out Guzma. There's no Guzmas here. We also put a judge in place of a Guzma. So, do we think that it's better to have a counter catcher and a judge versus 2 more Guzmas? I'm not sure. Alex Kreckler does. And, you know, he's frankly a better player than me. But when I've played this list, I haven't been able to make it work as well as my list. And that's part of the reason, and the lack of choice band is the other part. It's great that you can keep your energy in play with the wishful batons. You're playing 4 of them, so you get them a lot more often. But when it comes down to it, that doesn't feel like it's enough of an improvement to make me want to veer away from the things that I like about my list. We're doing 1 less Viridian Forest, which means you hit it less often. Yeah, sometimes your opponent plays them, but Finnegan and I tried going with 2 Viridian Forest and 3 Acro Bike for a while, and he agreed. Like, he didn't want Viridian. He was like, your opponents are going to play enough of them, it's not going to be a thing, just drop down to 2, you'll be fine. And we tested it, and we tested it, and then we tested with 3, and we found that a 3rd Forest was better than a 3rd Acro Bike for consistently having access to the energy. We're also playing 1 less energy here. I found that this list was a little too greedy for the way I play the deck. I think part of my mistake is that I didn't go whole hog with Quagsire as the main attacker. And I think that the correctly that Alex did. But I'm not sure if that's all of it or not. And in any case, I don't feel like I needed to fix my list. So I feel like I just needed to be able to play it better and faster. So with that said, this is a list we're trying. Try it, try mine. You know, maybe you'll find you like this one better than mine, or vice versa. I don't know. But yeah, and that's kind of everything that we have to talk about for Quagnag lists. I'm gonna go ahead and sign off for today, and we'll be back soon with some more content. Starting actual play in this series, and also starting the control deck. And also starting the control series. So with that, this is Jeffrey, JGB 14-6 Blake, Team Level 5, signing off.